Welcome back. The race to become the United Kingdom Prime Minister is nearing its end. It's former Chancellor Rishi Sunak versus Foreign Secretary Liz Truss. And while everybody was quite excited about Sunak winning, Liz Truss seemed to be the frontrunner in most surveys. But the finishing line will be crossed on September 5th. Now, CNN News 18's Sanjay Suri joins us from London to get us an update on the race. Sanjay, over to you.
Rishi Sunak hasn't lost yet, but come September the 5th, and it's hard to say how we could say or see otherwise. It's not just that he's behind in the polls, more than halfway behind Truss at this late stage. Not just that the betting odds are 95% on Liz Truss, with no one willing to bet on that 5% for Rishi Sunak. It's Rishi Sunak himself. He looks like he's lost it. He's lost the conviction and the confidence of the earlier stage of his campaign. Consider what he said at the hustings in Belfast, and the Northern Ireland Protocol is the big issue there. He said he will fix it. At another meeting, he was asked about the National Health Service. He said he'll fix it. That was his expression. Now, that's the language of an overconfident motor mechanic, not of one aspiring to be Prime Minister. He's simply not putting himself into this anymore. He's taken his eye off the road. Liz Truss, on the other hand, is beaming with confidence, and speculation has begun in right earnest. Who will be in her cabinet? The names being mentioned do not include Rishi Sunak for now. The best case scenario for him would be a place in the cabinet, but if that looks unlikely, as it does, then he'll have to use all his smartness to figure out a plan B.
All right, Sanjay, thank you so much for joining us and speaking to us about that. But let's take a look at the statement of Rishi Sunak that Sanjay Suri was speaking about.
Look, that starts with fixing the protocol, right? And it also starts with talking to all parties and making sure that we can try and resolve differences and bring people together. That's what I would do as Prime Minister. I'm sure it's what Liz would do as well. Both of us are committed to passing the bill that is in Parliament. But look, you know as well as I do, that bill will take time, right? That bill will take time to pass. So in the interim, of course, as a new Prime Minister, I would seek to talk to Europe and Ireland and the French to see if we can find a negotiated outcome. I've got a track record in doing that. I have good relationships with all my counterparts across the board, because a negotiated outcome, if it's there, and history shows us that even when Europe say they're not open to changing anything, they have. Because if that negotiated outcome is there, it will be far quicker than waiting for the bill to pass. So it's worth at least trying, but be in no doubt about my resolve to fix the situation with the protocol, which I think will unlock the power sharing and bring people back together.
Now, a video of a woman in Texas went viral this week because in it, she's verbally and physically assaulting 4 Indian American women in a parking lot. She made statements like, "You Indians are everywhere." The 5.5-minute video posted on the Facebook page of Rani Banerjee, one of the victims of the assault, showed Esmeralda Upton, the perpetrator, hitting one of the women in the face and swiping at the phones of 2 women who were filming the incident. Now, she also reached into her bag and threatened to shoot the 4 women. Fortunately, she has been arrested by the police and charged with assault and terroristic threats. Now, the incident is being treated as a hate crime, but let's take a look at a short video of the incident.
They're obviously not.
How does that make sense?
I'm a Mexican American. I was born here.
What makes you?
Like everywhere I you Indians are I'm Mexican. I'm Mexican. And I paid my.
Don't touch me.
You
don't
touch
touch
talk
me.
to you. Oh my God, guys, record. She's hitting me. She's hitting me. Oh, she's hitting me. She's hitting me.
Go back to your car. Joe, go back to your car.
I swear to God.
I did not talk to you, Jenna.
Now, moving on, this week, United States President Joe Biden announced a historic new step to address student loan debt, which includes forgiving up to $20,000 from millions of borrowers and extending the payment freeze one final time until the end of the year. Now, CNN's Isabel Rosales breaks down who exactly qualifies for the debt forgiveness and the mounting criticism that it could make inflation even worse. Take a look.
Fierce debate over student debt.
Where's this money you promised? You know, where's this money?
Questions on whether this new federal student loan relief goes far enough, who it helps, and if it will make inflation even worse.
Again, it's a start, but there's more work to be done.
Brittany Williams is a doctoral student with $80,000 in student debt and counting. She's made it her life mission to research and educate about college affordability. Take a look. The new plan extends a loan repayment freeze for a final time through December 31st. Cancels $10,000 of loans for those without a Pell Grant and $20,000 for those with one. To qualify, you must earn less than $125,000. Natalia Abrams, founder of the Student Debt Crisis Center, tells me this will be life-changing for millions of Americans. What are your first thoughts?
Our first thoughts is this has been a long time coming. This is a historic first step.
A wave of criticism. Some economists argue the cash injection and freeze on repayments would undermine efforts to cool down record-high inflation.
We're probably going to do more to increase inflation from debt cancellation than any inflation reduction from the Inflation Reduction Act.
Not everyone agrees.
Turning on payments suddenly for 40 million plus borrowers could cause a recession.
Williams co-authored this report on how Black women experience student debt. Data shows they hold more student debt than any other group.
The data screams we're not having families, and we're postponing owning our own homes because the weight of the student loan debt is just so much.
She found many Black women are struggling to manage repayment. For her family, these thousands back in her pocket means something.
No one wants to be in debt. It would absolutely add to that upward mobility.
All right, now right before we let you go, we have another special report. Once named the Garden of Eden, the lush green marshlands of southern Iraq have turned into a desolate desert. Here's a CNN report for more details.
It's hard to believe this parched land is where it's thought the Garden of Eden once stood. Droughts, water shortages and rising temperatures have turned the lush green marshlands of southern Iraq into this desolate desert, increasingly uninhabitable for a population that's relied on this land and water for survival. The marshes are one of Iraq's poorest regions and one of the most affected by climate change, according to the United Nations. These local buffalo herders are among the hardest hit. The effects of dehydration are very clear on the animals, this woman says. The buffaloes can't walk, drink, or cool themselves because of the drought. Where do they go now? They might fall in the mud and die. Many have already lost their livestock, their livelihood. The unprecedented low water levels are threatening not only the incomes, but the very existence of thousands of families. This year, since there's a drought everywhere, this man says, people were forced to leave. Most sold their animals, which they used to survive, and were forced to find different jobs. The UN says Iraq is one of the world's most vulnerable countries to the effects of climate change. And everywhere across this country, people are feeling the impact. Baghdad's been hit with more sandstorms this year than any other year in memory. It's also been sweltering under persistently high temperatures this summer, but the capital's ill-equipped to deal with these extreme heat waves. Decades of sanctions, wars, corruption, and mismanagement have decimated the infrastructure. People here get electricity a few hours a day. Those who can pay for it rely on private generators, making air conditioning a luxury many can't afford. When the temperatures hit extreme highs of more than 50 degrees Celsius or 122 Fahrenheit, the government had to declare a public holiday. But staying at home is not an option for day laborers like Mohammed. He has to earn a daily wage to feed his 3 children. It's so hot. I feel exhausted and thirsty all the time, Mohammed tells us. But we have to go out to work. Life must go on. As the scorching summer sun sets on Baghdad, the capital comes to life. With improved security, parents now can take their children out at night. But nightfall brings little respite from the heat. It's still hot, but what can we do? We have to entertain the kids, this grandmother tells us. Others take their children out to escape the heat indoors and fall asleep. On this night, it's around 40 degrees Celsius here. God help those who work during the day, this man tells us. I'm out here at night. I have an air cooler, and the temperature is not normal. But this appears to be the new normal for a nation that has already gone through so much.
Well, that's all that we have for the moment. Remember to tune in next week and join the World 360 team as we cover all of the biggest headlines around the globe. Thanks for watching and goodbye.